I'm super excited to talk to my colleague and, more important, my friend today. Chanel is my colleague at NBC, Chanel Jones, and we're going to talk today about something that's near and dear to her heart, something that is her passion. It's her purpose, one of her purposes. And she's going to talk about this new film that she's executive producing that I hope all of you will be able to watch this weekend. She just requested, I know, but I was just trying to kind of lead into her. I was just trying to kind of get going with her. But there she is. She's already, that's just how she is. She's on time. She probably has a story to go do. But I was just trying to talk about how incredible Chanel is. There
Can you
she
see me?
is.
Yay, there we go. Hi.
Oh, wow, you look great. You look so beautiful.
Thank you. This has been my life's mission this week. So I'm just running around trying to tell everybody I can tell about this project.
Okay, well then you're on here today. I was just talking about you, and I was talking about how this is your mission, this is your passion, and it's one of your purposes. You have a lot of purposes, but I just wanted, this is Chanel's very first documentary that she's executive producing. It's on this Friday, right?
This Sunday night.
Okay, this Sunday night.
This Sunday night.
Everybody watch it.
Yeah, so it's this Sunday night, December 19th on MSNBC at 10 Eastern, 9 Central. And I'll just beg you for your support. No, I'm just kidding. We're going to talk about my reasons why.
Yeah,
I'm
so
really
let's
hoping
talk
that
about
that it resonates.
Yeah, because we're going to put this up in the Sunday paper. We're going to recommend the documentary. I've seen it. It's fantastic. And Chanel has been deep in it with this. This was an idea you had because you said so many women, particularly women of color, go through the fertility or infertility path, and nobody is shining a light on particularly women of color. We've heard about women's kind of fertility struggles, but why did you want to do it about women of color in particular?
It's so interesting because, you know what, for years now, I feel like, look, I have kids. I have 2 9-year-olds and a 12-year-old now. I'm working. I've got a lot going on. And I felt like I'm juggling. And then I would go home at night and I would talk to some of my girlfriends or my sister-in-law, and they were hurting and they were struggling. And I felt like I didn't know what to say. And at times I felt helpless. And then it would make it worse if the kids are like, you know, talking in the background and I know that they're struggling. I mean, It always kind of made it not awkward, but it was just tough. And so I feel like now we're starting to hear a little bit more about IVF and surrogacy and egg freezing and all of these things. But I felt like we were missing from the conversation. Sometimes I'll flip through the pages of magazines and I don't see myself. And so I thought, well, gosh, hey, we're here because I know I'm going home and I'm talking to my friends. You know, we're here. So I thought, God, if I could just be a bridge or a vessel and get these women around a table, and so that the country and people will hear them and hear their stories. My hope is that women of color will feel affirmed, because I even underestimated how invisible they have felt in this process. But that also all women will find themselves in some of these women, or maybe women they know, and that it will transcend race. Because I have to be honest with you, there aren't too many things I've ever seen on network primetime television with a group of women of color talking about these kinds of issues. And so I'm like, can it be that women of color can watch this and feel affirmed, and other women, you know, Black, white, Asian, whatever, we can all rally around these women together? That is my prayer, and men too.
And so you said, I want to be a vessel. And you and I have talked about that. Because many people have like, I want to be here for a purpose. I want to be here to have a mission. And this kind of crept up on you in a way. You didn't necessarily say, I want to go and, you know, do a documentary about women of color and about fertility. How did you find your mission? How did you come to the place like, yeah, I can be a vessel here. I can make this my passion?
That's a good question. This is what you do. This is why you ask questions. I like, it's very good. And you force us to think. And I will say, no one has asked me this before, but I think 3 things. So one, on February 24th, 2020, I had vocal surgery. I had a polyp on my vocal cord, and I wasn't able to speak. And so for several weeks, I was not allowed to talk. And for someone who has been talking since she was in utero, telling me that I can't talk was pretty traumatic. It was funny at first. And my husband, like, you know, would put an app on my phone and it would talk for me. You know, it was funny for the first like day. But then after a while, it was kind of scary. I'm like, is there irony here that I speak for a living and now I've lost my voice? And I remember thinking, okay, well, when I get my voice back, Lord willing, I'm going to use it. And
Amen.
I made a commitment to myself. So that's one thing. The second thing was during the pandemic. I mean, we were all forced to slow down a little bit. And when you slow down and you rest, you can think. And I was already on leave for my voice. So I wasn't in the COVID conversation. I was watching it from home like everybody else. And I was able to spend time with my kids. I grew closer to my girlfriends. So when they were in the middle of these IVF treatments in the middle of COVID, it was scary because you couldn't go to the doctor. I mean, so I lived that with them. And then George Floyd, I'll be completely honest with you. That was a reckoning for a lot of us and for people of color. It was like, it's so interesting. You know, I cover the news for a living, and there have been so many rallies and, you know, talk about injustice and what have you. And I can do it and usually put up almost like a wall. I don't even know if I do it on purpose, but I'm able to kind of separate myself. And for the first time with this one, you couldn't separate yourself from the groundswell of what was happening in our country. And so even for me, as a woman of color in a corporate space, I felt this. It was almost like a defibrillator in, okay, what is my purpose? Am I using my voice? Remember you said you were going to use your voice, and are you helping this whole movement? Like, what are you doing? And so there was so many things. And I finally feel like I'm at a place here at the Today Show where they will allow me to stretch a little bit. And so it's like the stars aligned. And for me, now is the time. Like, now is the time. And I think we are ready for it. We talked about women's empowerment. We've gone through Me Too. So I think women are here for each other. I think we're ready to support each other. I'm a part of so many mom groups and mom blogs and parenting groups. I think it's time for that group to come over to this group and say, come on over. We want to wrap our arms around you. Because I don't think it's intentional that we haven't been talking. I just think we're busy over here. But I think it's time to push the pause button and change this narrative that these women have to walk around feeling like they're not seen.
Well, I love that. And I hope everybody takes a moment to kind of absorb all of those points that Chanel just walked through, kind of being able to step back, think for a second, am I using my voice? We all have a voice, not just somebody who's on the Today Show, but we all, now more than ever, everybody has a platform. Everybody in a way can be in the media. They can use their voice for whatever they decide is worth using their voice for. Stepping back and reflecting, what do I want to use my voice about? And then saying to yourself, the time is now. And then looking really, I think people always look out there for their purpose. You looked right around you and you found it in your girlfriends who didn't see themselves in the infertility or fertility journey. Now, you didn't call this infertility, you call it fertility.
On purpose.
Okay, so talk about that.
Well, several of the girls asked me, they said it, and they said, is it okay if you call this fertility?
Oh, wow.
And I said, well, what do you mean? And a few of the girls said, well, they feel like when they hear infertility, it's like they're broken. So it's like the girls over here have their fertility Instagram pages and their fertility this and their fertility that. And we're already feeling pain. We're already feeling excluded. But ours is part of the fertility journey. We're just having challenges. And so they felt like infertility almost kind of put them in this other category. Mm-hmm. And so I said, you know what? I received that. You know, it's not going to hurt me to say the fertility secret versus the infertility secret. And the secret is that they too are having these challenges. And so I am still learning. But that's what they have all said. It's that they want to be part of the fertility journey and that they hope that, you know.
This is called Stories We Tell. So these are the stories that people tell each other that they want to tell at large. The fertility secret. What's the big secret you think that needs to be exposed?
I think for me, I called it the fertility secret because these women are carrying this secret and they are moving around. They are going to work. Like a lot of these women are attorneys. They're marketing execs. I mean, they're doing very well career-wise, but they just feel like there's a part of them that's missing. Or, you know, I have friends who are doing well, but they're freezing their eggs. And several of them kept saying they felt like they were carrying a secret and they kind of tuck it and they keep moving forward. And, you know, a couple of the girls have brought up great points. Like if you lose a loved one, then you can talk about it. There are cards. Your boss says take a couple of days off and everyone understands. If you have a miscarriage, quite often you don't talk about it. You deal with it and you go to work the next day. I have one girl in the documentary who went to a baby shower hours later for another friend. And so there's this
Wow.
secret that they're carrying. And I even noticed just sitting around the table and talking with them, I think there was a burden lifted and just being honest about what they were going through. And so I don't think that women should have to carry their secrets any longer. If you choose to, absolutely. And I also think it's more than just having a baby. It's not this whole, even this whole documentary, and my whole intention is not about trying to get to this destination. It's the fact that there's a whole journey to get there, and there's a whole conversation that is missing, you know, to get there. And then a lot of the women have said, this is a space too. If I've been trying for 10 years to get to this place, so then does my life have to be on hold for 10 years and I'm broken and not whole for 10 years because this hasn't happened for me? And so there's so many women who are walking around feeling like by carrying the secret that they can't be a whole woman. You know, it's like, no. Let's tear down those walls. Like,
I think it's also what I'm learning from kind of young women in my daughter's generation who are saying, I hate when people come up to me and say, why aren't you having a baby? Because they don't realize I'm trying and it's just not working out. So I think it's also asking us all to be more mindful of how we approach people in their childbearing years, how we approach people who may not have children or who are spacing out kids or only have one kid, that instead of going, when's the next one coming? Or why aren't you having kids? That maybe we kind of step back. What are the right questions to ask? You said in the very beginning, you didn't know what to say.
I think you are exactly right. You know how we learned as a society not to ask a woman if she's pregnant? You know, remember, and women would do it too. It's like you kind of think so, and then you put your foot in your mouth because the woman isn't.
Oh, I had somebody, after I had my first kid, somebody said to me like 3 weeks later, so when is the baby due? And I was like, oh my God.
Right. And it's happened so much as a society now. We just know better. Like, unless you're friends or you know that you know that you know that you know, you don't ask. Right.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that we can have a shift in that as well, because you spend your whole life trying not to get pregnant. Relatives, you know, one of the girls talked about that. She spent her whole life trying not to get pregnant, and she did all the right things. You go to school, you find your husband, you do all these things, and then when you try, you're having problems. And it went from don't even look at a man to when are you guys gonna have babies? When are you gonna have kids? You know, so it's like, I just think you're right. We need to be more mindful of how we approach that topic. And I really hope that I know I'm changed just by hearing.
How are you changed? How are you changed?
I will, one, I used to always, as a friend, try to make it better. So if a friend calls me and she says, you know, I had a rough day today, I'm tired of shooting myself with needles and my butt is raw. And then I say, oh, but it's going to be okay. Because you know what? You're going to get there. It's going to be so worth it. And you know what? People have to do no. I have learned to let them say that and receive it and not try to make it better. Because sometimes
you hold space. You're holding space.
And I think as friends, we're well-intentioned when we're always with girlfriends and trying to make it better. But I think sometimes it's just okay to just sit there and give me your ice cream and let's go. Let's just sit in it. Let's just swim in the mud together. I'm not trying to pull you out of the mud. I'm going to get in the mud with you. And we're just going to sit here.
One of the women in the film talks about the connection between this fertility journey and grief. And how they're super connected. Help people unpack that a little bit, because people think like grief.
See, and I didn't know that. I learned that from talking with these women. I listen, that girl, Ada, is my sister-in-law. And so my husband had no idea what his little sister was going through. He had no idea because she's so strong. And I think we as women, we try to be so strong, but sometimes it's to our own detriment. We had no idea. She's the best auntie. Like, my kids love her. And we had no idea that she was grieving. Think about every holiday. We're all together. We're about to be together in a week or so. And the kids are running around. All the nieces and nephews are running around and they're all hopping on her lap. She was in pain when they're hopping all over her, you know, because of all those needles. And we had no idea, you know, that she was going through all that. She was grieving. And even in the periods in between IVF, you know, treatments and sessions, you have to, when it didn't work and it's not successful, you're grieving for what you hoped would happen and didn't happen. So for her, it's been 10 years of a grieving process. And I never connected infertility and grief. I just never, if you don't know, you don't know. But now we know. And now if you hear this documentary and you hear these women speak, you can't unlearn it and you can't unknow it. And so now we know what our sisters are dealing with.
So what do you think, Chanel, that this is focused on women of color? What's particular about their journey compared to, women who aren't of color and their journey?
That's a good question. So there are several things. So one, just from a just flat out statistics standpoint, there was research, and we almost included this and we just didn't have the time. At the end of the day, 1 hour is 44 minutes, I learned.
Yeah.
So there are studies that show that medical residents, when they were asked anonymously, that they feel like Black women can take pain a little more, that they can handle it, that our pain tolerance and threshold is higher. And so if half of medical residents believe that and they become physicians, when a woman of color comes in front of you and says, I'm hurting, that means that 50% of them may not realize the extent of her pain. And so for a woman of color, what I realized is these women are so used to that treatment that they didn't know anything different. And so we hear so much about being your own advocate, from mammograms to colon cancer screenings. Well, if you've always been treated that way, you don't even recognize that you're not being an advocate. You just think that that's the way it is. I am blessed. I come from a family of physicians. My grandfather was a doctor. He went to Howard Med. His father was one of the first Black doctors in my area, and he went to Howard Med. And so I grew up with these physicians who were my uncles and grandpas. And so I watched them. I would go to their offices when I was little, in the packed lobbies. And my grandpa was known as a gentle physician. And people will come in and even now, he will talk to you and he hears you and he affirms you. And so that's all I know. So then when I go now as a 43-year-old woman, if I don't feel that, I'll find someone else, because I know there's so many wonderful physicians and specialists who will hear you. But Black women, a lot of them don't even know any other way. They didn't know that it was a thing. And also not feeling seen. Right. Another issue is fibroids. They disproportionately affect women of color. And I didn't realize it. I just thought everybody I know has fibroids. And there are creams and supplements and potions. We stop eating meat. We stop eating certain kinds of everybody's trying to figure out why it is that we're getting these fibroids. My mom found something on the internet. We're all trying to figure it out. And then I started to think about it. I'm like, why is it that brown women are disproportionately, Black women are getting these fibroids? So then when I started asking specialists, they were like, well, we don't know. We think there may be a genetic component, but we don't know. And it's like, well, why don't we know? Are we not doing the research? Well, then why aren't we doing the research?
Amen.
Is there not funding? Or do we not matter? So then it's an onion.
That's kind of a universal thing with women's health. I think that's something that women, and many women on here are saying, we're not treated properly. We're not seen. So many women, we don't have the research on women's health, and we don't have it on women of color, right? In any area, whether
Alzheimer's,
it's infertility, Alzheimer's, right? Depression, hypertension, you name it. So that is kind of trying to get more women of color to become doctors, right? Get more women to become doctors, to fund more research into women's health. That's something we do a lot of over at the Women's Alzheimer's movement, but to also, you want people to understand, right, that infertility, not only that it's associated with grief, which is a big aha, I think, for people, but also that it's a huge stressor. You were saying that many of these women are going to work every day, giving themselves shots, going on this roller coaster, right, of emotions, and that people are really unaware at the workplace of what they're going through. So kind of being more mindful of, I suppose, everybody's kind of fertility journey and their choices, right?
Yes. And there were so many things I learned. One of the women talked about how if you are freezing your eggs, it wasn't covered at her job. But if you're freezing your eggs or you're going through IVF and you have a partner, it was covered. And then she's like, so my friends who are single are like, so because I'm single, mine isn't covered, so there's so many things that I learned. And so I thought, okay, I sat down with 8 hours of footage and I'm like, okay, help me here. How do I tell this story? And I thought, okay, if people can see these women as human beings and we can empathize and understand their journey and relate to them as women, right, then when I get into the nuances of fibroids, or then if I can have a part 2, or then if we can continue the discussion about funding and all of that, I'm hoping then that you will listen a little more and I can grab your attention. Because at first I thought, okay, if I get too nuancy, I don't want you to lose all of that into the medical jargon and lose their stories. And so I think we know the power, the transformative power of telling a story. And so I thought, okay, for this first round, let me just tell their stories and hope that their stories as women will resonate with whoever's watching. So then when she does tell you that she's never felt seen, you'll feel it.
That is so beautiful. That's why I think it's called, with the stories we tell. It's several people have asked again. It is airing this Sunday, December 19th on MSNBC. Once again, it's called The Stories We Tell, The Fertility Secret.
At 10 p.m. Eastern.
10 p.m. Eastern. It's going to be in the Sunday paper. We're going to repost this conversation. But this isn't something that you're just one and done, right? This is not something you're going to just tell, oh, these are the stories we tell, and that's it. Now I don't have any other stories to tell. What is this? I pray.
I pray from my lips to God's ears in some executive office somewhere upstairs above my head right now. I hope so. I mean, that's another part of why I'm hoping that we can support this project and support this film, because I do want to show everybody that our stories matter and that we will support our stories and we should be able to tell more of them. So really our support of these women and the women they represent, it really matters, because I think we just haven't had these kinds of discussions in a format and an outlet like this, a platform like this. And there's so many stories that we don't tell, that we talk about behind closed doors.
Yeah, so I want to say, because I think that this is super interesting. People look at you and they think, okay, you're a journalist, you're on a national television show, you have so much confidence, you can do whatever you want. And I think it's really important to just help people for a minute understand, like, that you've had fear going into this.
If I didn't have a Maria Shriver in my life, I'm like, and I mean that sincerely, you, Jill Martin, Savannah, like, it feels like I am Dorothy sometimes, and I'm from Kansas, but like on this little road and people are just giving me words of wisdom and pouring into my bucket, and I'm running this race and I'm going down this yellow brick road. Like, I'm like, it has been, I think you're right. People think, and they also think, oh, she's on the news, so it's no big deal that she just has this 1 hour documentary on MSNBC. And it's like, oh.
So talk about that, Chanel. Talk about the fear, because so many people, their fear paralyzes them, and we all have fear. So how were you able? First, it's important to acknowledge that even someone who's as successful as Chanel has fear.
Big fear, even now. Yes. You know what it is? I think it's bigger than me, and it's a lot easier for me to be someone's advocate, and for better or worse, that I can speak up for someone else before I speak up for myself. And so I know that I am speaking for so many of my friends and so many women. And so I've been able to push through and go to the network and pitch this idea. And there were no's, and hear a no and try to keep pushing forward, because I feel like, again, one, it's my purpose, and I believe that. And you have to really believe it to fight for it, right? And I also believe that I am an advocate for women who can't speak up, for women who just are a girl who's sitting in St. Louis and she just thinks that that's the way it is when she goes to the doctor. She thinks she sits in a busy waiting room. She goes in, the doctor's like, yeah, and then she leaves. And that's all she knows. I want to grab her and say, hey, you don't have to take that, and it doesn't matter what your race is or whatever. Like, you don't have to take that. And so I feel so strongly, and almost representing these women behind me that I don't know, that it's giving me more hope and more whatever than fear. I replace fear with faith. That is the only way that I can keep doing this, because this is no easy feat to still do this and do the job that I get paid to do.
So you're replacing fear with faith. Okay, so everybody out there who's got fear right now, know that she too had fear. She's still scared right now. She's probably sitting there knowing her, like, is anybody going to watch this on Sunday night?
Yes. That is 100% accurate. I said we had a screening here in New York City at Bryant Park Hotel. This, first of all, beautiful hotel. Like, I'm like, is this happening? And we have a screening for a small amount of folks. And I sat in the back of the theater like a psycho. Like, so we have these like things of champagne, individual champagne, and somebody brought me one, and they're like, here, have a champagne. During the whole thing, I'm like holding on to the champagne. It's like cold, and I was trying to like stay in my body, and I'm watching the people watch the film, and I saw tears. Then they would laugh. My mother was like talking back to the screen. I'm like, Mom, you're not alone. But in many ways it was affirming. I'm like, okay, everything I'm intending, they're receiving it. And so, and that helped, you know? And so it's affirming. If anybody has an idea and you have fear, you just, like I said, you know, there's some people who are motivated by fear. And so that drives them. I cannot operate that way. Like I have to replace that fear with faith. I remember, and the same thing with like anxiety. I remember interviewing, I can't remember his name, but he married Prince William, and Kate and Duchess. I'm messing things up. Anyway, so I interviewed him for their wedding. It was a huge wedding. Right. And I said, do you get nervous? I mean, the whole world was watching this wedding. And he said, Chanel, you know what I do? He said, whenever I get nervous, I flip it into excitement and joy and gratitude. And so instead of, oh my gosh, I'm about to marry a prince and the whole world is watching this wedding and it is, ooh, I get to have this ceremony. I get to be a part of it. This is amazing. This is what a blessing, how exciting, you know. And I remember him saying that. I was doing morning news in Philly and I was like, that's good. And so now if I'm on the Today Show and I've got a big interview or whatever, and I'm like, I had Nicole Kidman the other day. We were doing the I Love Lucy series anyway, or the film that she's doing. And I was like, oh my God, it's Nicole Kidman. Oh my gosh, am I nervous? And I'm like, no, how cool is this? This is exciting. What a blessing. I am living my dream. I am sitting across from Nicole Kidman talking about how she became, you know, I love, you know, this whole concept, you know. So I constantly do that every day. And so when I'm afraid to work on this documentary or afraid to go in that executive's office and ask, it's, wait a minute, I'm in 30 Rock. What a blessing. I get to tell these stories.
Amen.
This is exciting. Let me, you know what I mean? If you flip it, it just gives you a little bit more. It does for me. I don't know if that will help anyone listening, but.
That for sure. Everybody, people are going, I'm going to watch it. I set my DVR. I'm going to do it. And I think that's so, you get to interview Nicole Kidman, right? Instead of like, I have to. I remember several years ago, I changed that. Like, I have to go do this. I have to go do that. It's like, I get to go. And how we talk to ourselves is so important. Who we tell ourselves we are is so important. Asking ourselves why we have this voice, why we have this platform, how we're going to use it, and to imagine one other person out there that could benefit from our voice, that could benefit from something we're doing, be it a book, be it a post, be it a film, be it an interview. Everybody has their thing, be it cooking, be it designing cards, you name it. Every single thing is powerful. Every single thing lands in somebody and can change somebody's world, right?
So affirming. Yes. I remember, I'm listening to you talk. I remember I used to watch, remember when Barbara Walters would do her Most Fascinating People?
Yeah.
And I remember watching it, or, you know, Oprah would do her specials, you know, but it was just like, I remember watching it and going, wow, like how cool to like be fascinated about something and be able to tell that story. Like I literally remember watching Barbara Walters. That was the one that really sticks out to me. And I can't imagine what it would have felt like to see 6 women of color around a table on prime time talking about, like, I don't even know what that would have felt like. So for me now, fast forward these decades later, it is not lost on me that now it's like, wait, here I am. And I am sharing these stories with these beautiful women. And it is a gift. So yeah, am I scared? Heck yeah. I've never executive produced anything, but you know what? I'm affirmed that this is what I should be doing.
Amen. This is so awesome. It is this Sunday. Okay. She's nervous. She's scared. She's anxious, but we've got her. We're going to watch Stories We Tell, The Fertility Secret, MSNBC, 10 o'clock. We're going to repost this in the Sunday paper. We're going to recommend that everybody, women of color, women who look like me, women who look like Chanel, gather around that table. We can all learn. We can all grow. We can all find ourselves in a conversation that we can learn something from, that we can laugh, we can cry, and we can support our friend Chanel. I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of you for putting faith over fear, for making that decision to use your voice and to say, like, if not now, when? And now is the time. All of these nuggets that you just landed here today, bravo.
Maria,
Bravo.
thank you for being a light in my life and for being a cheerleader and encouraging me to find that voice, all the things. We all know that's why we're all talking to you right now. We all know the light that you bring to our lives. So I just want to thank you for being in my village.
I love being in your village, and I can't wait to give you a hug and congratulations in person. I know you've got a lot of stuff. 10 p.m. Sunday, December 19th. Watch it and learn.
Thank you guys so much.
We
and I'm
love
reading
you.
all of your comments. You guys are just, thank you so much. Thank you.
Faith over fear. That's your line there. Everybody's repeating it. Faith over fear, right?
Absolutely.
Or,
Thank you guys
Chanel.
so much. Love you, Maria.
Bye-bye. Love you.
Bye-bye.